Along this healing journey in therapy, or really any sort of self development process, there are probably many moments in which you kind of have that aha sense. You think about something a little bit differently. You recognize that what you've thought about something may not necessarily be like the whole picture, but lots of moments that you just think, I hadn't really thought of it like that before. When you're on this healing journey, there are also some moments that are so much bigger than that. And today I'm going to share with you something that happened in a recent session. Welcome, I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thank you so much for joining me. So first, I just want to say how fortunate I feel to be able to share these kinds of moments with my clients. It is such an amazing, beautiful, profound experience. And they may not necessarily always feel that way about it, but I do, because I know that those moments are an aspect of such a significant shift that they will have. So what I'm sharing with you today, I do have permission to share. So going back to how I started, where, you've got these moments, and it could be a friend, it could be something that you read, it could be a therapist, but it's like, oh, I hadn't really thought about that before. And that can actually be quite significant many times. Like there's this new way of thinking about something, right? And that is an important part of certainly this healing journey. But there are some times where those things can happen and you might be able to recognize it as a little bit of a shift, but you kind of forget about it, right? Like you just kind of go on about your days and weeks and months, and you don't necessarily continue to think about that. So the way that you had previously perceived something, you might find yourself kind of falling back on that. And that's completely normal. That's part of the reason why this is a process and a practice. So with the session that I had with my client, we were talking about a situation where she had an experience with somebody that she's relatively close to, pretty close to, and the person asked her to do something, and the client was kind of, I don't know that surprised is necessarily the right word, but curious, confused maybe. I think she did tell me exactly how she felt, but I don't remember right now. But it was that sort of experience, because what this person asked of her, it was good, but what this person asked of her was something that was very much different than what she believed about her role in that circumstance, what she believes about what people in that circle would really think about her, kind of think about what her value is, right? And I don't mean that they would devalue her or anything, but just like there are some people that we go to for certain things, right? And what this person came to her for was not something that she would have really ever anticipated that they would come to her for. Again, a good thing. But with that, so we've been working together for a while, and this certainly isn't the first time that this has happened. But with that, just kind of found herself thinking about how different that was than what she would have anticipated, how contrary in a sense it was to what she has always believed about what this group of people would think about her or would go to her for. And with that recognition, we talked about how it's just really difficult to, in a sense, wrap your head around, really being able to sit with that and see that as a reality. And it causes you then to question, right? But if this is who they think I am, why would she ask this? And if she asked this, then what does it mean about what people perceive of me? And this is an important part of, I think, any sort of personal growth, but certainly any sort of significant healing, because so much of our struggle comes from what we believe about who we are, right? Those false beliefs. And we believe them so strongly for a variety of reasons, but partly when we have a group of people that we think view us in a particular way, we can think about something related to that many times over and over again. And every time we think about it, it reinforces those beliefs, those ideas, those expectations. So it's reinforced over and over again over many years, much of the time. And to have an experience in which it causes you to think, well, maybe what I have believed is not necessarily true. Unless you're brand new to me, you've likely heard me talk about considering the possibility, right? Like, is it possible that it could be true that this person cares about me? Is it possible that maybe I did do a good job with that? Is it possible that maybe it wasn't really my fault, right? Like, even just starting with that sense of, is it possible? Because when we believe these things so strongly, there is no room for anything different. We absolutely believe it with everything in our being, and no matter what might show up in our lives that would contradict that, we either completely ignore it or we make an excuse for it. We somehow make that an exception and not allow it to begin to shift anything for us. Well, part of what happens in the process of healing, which is part of the reason it's a process, is that you begin to not just have these experiences, because in all reality, many of these experiences you've had previously, but because that belief is so strong and you aren't as consciously aware, they don't register. They don't really have an impact, an internalized impact. Well, when you're on this journey and something like that happens, you find yourself like thinking, well, wait a second, like, how does that fit? And what does that mean? And like, people can actually feel a lot of resistance around it sometimes too, and feel like this person is just being nice, or this person is just setting me up to fail even. Like, there can be all kinds of kind of excuses in a sense that we make about it. But when you're on this journey and you have the continual kind of space in a sense to take a step back from your daily life and the ways that you're functioning in your daily life, to look at it a little bit more broadly, a little bit more objectively, you begin then to experience things in a little bit more of an open and objective way. And so we were talking about the idea of being able to really wrap your head around it. And I shared how challenging that can be, because it's so different than what you have believed and expected. And it's almost as if like the ground shifts under you. It's this often really profound moment when you can really grab a hold of it, where something shifts really significantly and it becomes more than just possibility. You begin to really recognize, like, okay. And one of the things I said is, this didn't just suddenly happen that this person thought that you would be the right person for this. She's always believed that, right? And one of the things that will come up a lot is people fear that if somebody knew certain things about them or knew ways that they felt or how they struggled, that they would have a different opinion of them. And one of the things that I thought was really important in this situation, and probably for many of you as well, is that the person that asked her knows that there's some things that she struggles with. One of the things that she fears that people judge her for, she judges herself for. She thinks that might make people perceive her in a particular way. And the fact that this person asked her what she did really meant that she knows these things about her, but doesn't view it in a negative way whatsoever. Because if she did, she definitely would not have come to my client asking this of her. And being able to recognize that that didn't just suddenly happen. She didn't just wake up one day and think differently, where she used to judge her for those things and suddenly didn't. No, that person has always viewed her as the person that she would want for that particular thing. But when we are just living our lives day to day, holding on to these beliefs that we have, we can't see that. We can't accept that that can be a reality, because what we believe feels. Not just do we think that it's real, but it feels in our system as though it is real. Just as we need to breathe, right? That's not something we have to think about. It just is, and we feel that. We feel that need. Our core beliefs, which are the false beliefs typically, they work and function in our system in much the same way. So we talked about the reality that this person that asked this of her has never seen those things that she worried that people would view her in a different way about, that has no meaning to her, to this person. That person has never thought about those things in a negative way. Certainly not in the way that my client has viewed those things. And I think it's just really important, and I would really encourage you, maybe even pause this and let yourself think, reflect on people, circumstances, experiences that you have held on to, in which you have believed that somebody has an idea about who you are or what you're capable of or anything related to that. And going back to that idea, is it possible that maybe they don't? And if they don't, that means that all this time, maybe days, months, years, maybe even decades, all this time you have been living from that place of believing that that is true. And I would just really like to encourage you to consider the very, very real possibility that it isn't, and it never has been. And with my client, we talked about that is the reality, that this person who she has believed would think about her in particular ways clearly doesn't, nor has she. And as we talked about that, and I was just feeling that shift, and I don't know if she felt it necessarily in the same way that I did, but I know what this means, and so I definitely was feeling it. But as we talked about that, I said, this is the same exact thing. This is the same exact thing that happens when we begin to really be able to accept that all of those false beliefs that we hold, all the shame that we have held on to, it's the same. We believe that. We believe those things just as much as she believed what this person would think about her or has thought about her. Just like you believe that people, even yourself certainly, but you believe that other people believe certain things about you, think certain things about you. You believe that your role, whether it's in like a family system or a work setting, a friend group, you believe that people perceive you in a particular way, typically not a particularly nice way or positive way. And you live from that place. You even experience the fear of that sometimes, and oftentimes even some hurt around that, believing that that is how you are perceived or experienced or thought of. And when you begin to be able to recognize that everything that you believe about who you are, your responsibility in the bad things you've experienced, the sense of shame that you've carried about various things, your sense of unworthiness or being undeserving, and all the things that you think are evidence to prove all of those things. Through this healing process, there will be a day in which there's a shift that happens and you begin to think, actually, it's not even so much about finding yourself thinking, it's just that there's this thing that happens and suddenly you recognize, you don't necessarily fully believe it yet, but you have this significant moment of, what if? Could it really be possible? Like for my client, could it really be possible that this person has never thought any of those things that she believed that she did? Because if she believed any of them, she wouldn't have asked her what she did. And being able to recognize that, and when it comes to what you believe about who you are, your sense of worthiness, your enoughness, your capability and capacity, you believe that you have evidence of that, but it isn't actually evidence. And there comes a time, as long as you continue on this healing journey, it's not going to happen instantaneously on its own, but there comes this moment when you recognize, oh my God, all this shame, or believing that it was my fault because of this or that. That shift happens and you recognize, that's not my reality. That isn't the truth. And that is such a powerful moment. You think about, like, it is amazing how you find yourself reflecting on so many different things, but you think back and think about different times or periods of times when you've believed so strongly about something, and you go back and like start questioning things like, well, what made me believe that? Or what was it about that situation that I took as evidence? Because clearly it really wasn't. So all of those ideas that you hold about who you are, where there's so much judgment or shame, you believe it to be very real and true. But the people around you have never thought those things about you. I do want to say, I know for some people, there are a lot of unhealthy people around you. And those people might be thinking all kinds of things, but they are very unhealthy, inaccurate ideas. Relatively healthy people that you have around you, I can very confidently say, with that caveat, relatively healthy people, so that's really important here. I can very confidently say that any relatively healthy person that you have had in your life does not think about you in the way that you think about you. And when you really begin to have experiences that can show you that, and not just have experiences, because again, you've likely had those experiences, but when you are able to be more consciously aware, more receptive to those types of experiences, things really begin to shift. Because whatever it is that you blame yourself for, the thing that you think or the things that you believe about you that caused bad things to happen, those things have never been real. Nobody else actually believes those things about you. Nobody else thinks about you in those ways. Again, relatively healthy people. But when we believe it, and we've believed it our entire lives, there just isn't room for anything else. We fight really hard to deny or excuse any sorts of positive things because we need to believe, continue to believe in what we've always believed. And that's part of the reason why on this healing journey, I believe it is so incredibly important to have professional, qualified support. Why I say also that we cannot do this on our own. Because when we try to do things on our own, we're always with our own thoughts. We're always with our own ideas. We don't challenge our beliefs. We're just looking for evidence that confirm what we believe. And it's not even evidence that confirms what we believe. We will pick things and twist them in a way so that we can make ourselves believe that it confirms it. But the truth of your worthiness has always existed. The truth that you are enough as you are has always been true. The reality that relatively healthy people would never learn something about your trauma and blame you, that is the reality. Yes, there are a lot of people out there who will blame you, but they are not relatively healthy people. They're just not. Even if somebody doesn't quite understand it, they're not likely going to blame you for it. They may wonder, like, how does that happen or something like that, but they're not actually going to blame you for it. People who would actually blame you for it, clearly there's something going on with them that would make them say something that, first of all, has no basis in reality, but that is also just hurtful and shaming, right? Like, relatively healthy people don't go around telling people things like that. So whatever it is that you believe about yourself, whatever it is that you perceive about what other people must think or believe about who you are, for today, for this moment, I'd really love to invite you to just take this time and consider the reality, because it is a reality, that the things that you hold on to, that you believe other people think, it's never been true. I know it can be hard to really accept that. I know for a lot of people, your mind is going to all the things that you believe are evidence of the contrary. And I do want to be really clear again and reiterate, for many of you, there are people in your life who have said really hurtful things, who behave in ways that it's hard not to take personally and believe that it must have something to do with you. That doesn't make it true, but I fully understand that that is the reality, and I've experienced that myself. But those people have their own issues, because reasonably healthy, happy people, content people even, do not blame and judge and be hurtful to people in their lives. Doesn't mean that it never happens, but it's certainly not something that you would experience on a regular basis with a relatively healthy person. So if you journal, I would really encourage you to take some time after watching this and do a little bit of journaling, and just what you notice coming up for you as I spoke about this, what you find yourself, where your mind is going as a result, what kinds of things are coming up for you. I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments below. And any other thoughts that you'd like to share, please feel free to share them in the comments. this really is something that is such a pivotal part of healing, and every single one of you deserves to experience that. And everything that I have shared here is true for every single one of you, even if the people around you are not able to show you that. Thanks so much for being here and watching. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to click the bell for notifications and click subscribe. And if you found this helpful, make sure to share it or make sure to like it. Oh my goodness, so other people can find it too. You could also share it if you'd like. But thank you for being here, and thank you for being a part of this community. I will look forward to seeing you next time.